Welcome to Esoteric Talk, where we cover everything within the realm of spiritual mystery. Join me, astrologer, psychic medium, and frequency healer, Lydia Chiarenza.
And me, Rachel Talia, hypnotherapist, intuitive, and energy practitioner, as we uncover what lies beneath. In today's episode of Esoteric Talk with AstroGnosis, Hypnotherapy, and Astrology.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 8 of Esoteric Talk. In today's episode, we covered spiritual initiation from all angles, from an evolutionary perspective. We talked about what spiritual initiation is, where it began, who is involved, and how it could potentially correlate to the upcoming Virgo New Moon. So with that being said, let's hand it over to Rachel.
Welcome to our 8th podcast. My name is Rachel, and this is the lovely Lydia. Thank you for being here, and hello, Lydia.
Hello, guys. How are you guys doing tonight? I guess you can't really respond to me. I'm a little bit loopy. Me and Rachel just did a session, and we went pretty deep into it. But today we will be talking to you about the concept of spiritual initiation. And this is one that I'm super excited to talk about, to be completely honest. I did a lot of research on initiation theory, as well as different theologies that support this, but also bringing it kind of into the current time. So this should be an interesting concept to explore, especially with our upcoming event on Thursday.
Yes, I'll be recording a hypnosis called The Initiate, where we are going to take people on a deep journey on discovering their own journey and connecting with this initiation process that everybody goes through. But it obviously, because it's still yet to be recorded, we don't really know what's going to be all on it. It's just, this is the theme and the goal to work through some of these energies for the new moon.
Yeah, I'm sure that once you go in there, you will see exactly what you need to see, just as always. So maybe we should talk about what exactly initiation is from a spiritual perspective.
Yes, Lydia, from a spiritual perspective, what is initiation from your research?
So I went really deep with this, and I pulled up actual definitions and everything for Virgo season, because that's what Virgo needs. Virgo needs the logic and the facts. So if you're going to explore this from an actual definitive standpoint, initiation is ultimately a rite of passage. We are making an entrance into a certain group or sect in society, ultimately via initiation. And from a spiritual perspective, it's a broadening kind of our awareness and our consciousness.
So, I mean, that's where you get into like secret societies and different ancient traditions that has had, a teacher or a guide or a master or even a guru that provided these opportunities, these learning opportunities for their students to be initiated, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's where it gets crazy. So initiation in general actually dates back to prehistoric times. Like, we're looking back to like ancient Egypt, Persia, Greece, Rome. There's temples all around the world which have been known anciently to house initiation ceremonies. This isn't a new concept. When we're dealing with initiation in general, typically the person being initiated is being initiated into life's mysteries, ultimately. So life's mysteries, what is that? It's an awareness of the unknown. It's esoteric. It is gnosis, ultimately.
Well, it's just from a personal experience. So as a Reiki practitioner, I'm a Reiki master, so there's 3 initiations you have to go through by a Reiki master. And so Reiki is very well known nowadays, but it is basically you are with the Reiki master, and they're providing you with the knowledge and the insight, but then there's also these symbols that are utilized that you connect with. And when I got initiated with that, it was really interesting because you become aware of these subtle energies, and you notice these feelings, these, heat or coolness, this tingling sensation coming out of your hands. And then, so it was a really different experience to have, never having anything like that. And so I can, just from that perspective, it broadened my whole perception of what is possible and what we are capable of doing and being.
So from an esoteric perspective, ultimately, it's the neophyte, which starts kind of the initiation process. This is somebody who is a beginner kind of in relation to a subject or skill or a belief. So that's where you would have been kind of before the Reiki master stage, is you're kind of in the process of learning. You're being initiated into this realm. But what you said about broadening your senses and becoming aware of energies and things that were kind of unknown to you before, that is a major core principle of initiation from a spiritual perspective in general. Pretty much every theology that you would approach from initiation would say so. That's what you're being introduced kind of into, is this unknown. And it's very esoteric. It's very much so information that kind of traditionally was reserved to a certain class or type of people. I guess it's not the best way of saying it. I mean, there was an elitist kind of concept behind it, but it's not the elitism. It's more so that this isn't something that necessarily everybody experiences. Not everybody goes through this process. Their soul has to be at the point of kind of being ready for that process to begin.
Well, how would one know, though? What do you think? How do you think someone would know that, okay, this is the process? Do you think it just kind of happens that way, where everything aligns and there's an interest, and then, when the student is ready, the teacher appears? Or I don't know, what's your take on that, or even from what you researched?
I actually did write down a bunch of concepts as to how you would know that you were in the process of being initiated. So a lot of people who are in the process of being initiated are people who have experienced like a dark night of the soul or a spiritual awakening. They are awakening to the fact that there is more kind of to life than just what we can see. There's also a really strong emphasis on initiation in relation to finding a higher calling, or being driven kind of to living out your purpose in life. As initiation in general ultimately assists you in living at your highest vibration. Every level, every initiation ultimately brings you closer to this, and it brings you closer to yourself as well. So people who are in the process of being initiated, these are the people that are seeking out themselves. Ultimately, it's a very personal energy to be working with. It's very much so I am focused. It's soul centered. It is learning who you are and how to be the best version of that person, and being able to go deep and really explore yourself on all levels.
Well, it also is a mystical journey. I think those that are more inclined to finding or experiencing the divinity within them and seeing that within themselves and others would be drawn to such a process as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's a very mystical journey facet of it all. A lot of people will even be faced with the prospect of being initiated, and they won't want to go through with the process because it's too much work. These are the people that you would see kind of get a glimpse kind of the light in life and decide to go back to sleep, because it's not an easy process. It's not a painless process either. You have to be willing to go deep in there and really see the truth. And that's a major central focus as well in relation to initiation, is seeking out the truth.
Yeah, it's kind of like you have to be willing to face these dark parts of yourself or your personality, or these places that there hasn't been light shed on, in order to come to this wholeness, and in order to get to the next level of awareness or of your involvement. I think about those people that are very much focused on just love and light, and as beautiful as that is, when you're just wanting to look at that, and you see anything that's dark or negative as outside of you only, then you're projecting a lot of that shadow onto other people instead of being able to really look at it and know your own demons. And I think that is a huge part of initiation of the process of getting to these levels of awareness, of being able to look at this and work through it, and to find the strength and the courage to move through it.
Oh no, definitely. And I mean, I'm trying to figure out the right way to put this into terms. I'm thinking of Sagittarius energy right now, but there is such a strong Sagittarian focus because initiation in general encompasses so much of the higher mind, and it's not like initiation is just one religious sect or one belief sect. This is your ability to kind of construct this toolkit for yourself that assists you in self-discovery ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting though, even when you study astrology from an esoteric perspective, when you look at the signs and the archetype of them and what they represent and that journey, those have their own type of initiations. You know what I'm saying? Am I making sense here?
Oh no, actually, yeah, you are. That was something I was thinking of as I was writing down all these notes in relation to everything that I've kind of gathered about initiation. Astrology in general, I feel like acts as an initiation or an initiator in a lot of ways, because it is the journey to knowing thyself in so many different ways. And I'm sure that astrology has initiated many people.
Yeah, and it's just interesting at this time, in history. So we don't need to have these secret societies. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty, but we don't need to go hide in a corner and worry about getting burnt alive, burnt at the stake, or hanged, or there's so much more freedom and access to that information, to that knowledge. And I wonder if it's because of the changing of the times of the yugas, if we're getting, or if it's, the souls that have done the work, so now they come in and it's a little bit easier to access in order to remember, or if it's a combination of those things. But it's just interesting that it's not necessary to have it be this secret place of gathering where you're only a select few, but now so many more people are able to receive this information and be on this journey.
Yeah, that was something I also wanted to tap into, is kind of the history behind all of this. It's why I wanted to call this the evolution of initiation, because we look back to initiation beginning, again, ancient times. We're looking back to ancient Egypt. We're looking back to Persia. We're looking at Greece and Rome and these temples and grand kind of initiation experiences, being welcomed into adulthood from a spiritual perspective. But as time has gone on, it has changed a lot. At this point in time, or I guess a little bit before this point, we'll say, there was kind of the introduction of secret societies being largely the initiators. And I think a lot of that had to do with the element of persecution that was involved in being a spiritual person, being somebody who either had prominent spiritual gifts or somebody who had prominent spiritual awakening and consciousness. It wasn't something that you could just be out and about kind of doing in your daily life, because you were bound to get persecuted for that. So they had to have these places to gather. They had to have these places of secrecy in a lot of ways in order to hold on to this knowledge. Prominent secret societies that have been rumored to exist and probably still exist, we will say. The Knights Templar, Freemasons, Illuminati, Skull and Bones, and I even put Rosicrucians on here. And I don't even mean rumored to exist. All of these did exist, is a good way of putting that. Bringing it up to the current kind of moment in time, we see people who are being initiated in their daily lives without the need for this secrecy.
Yeah, I looked into Rosicrucians and looked into some of the material, and a lot of it is about, this is a basic, I know very little, so, saying that, but it was focus on, understanding chakras and auras and tapping into your intuitive gifts and, you know, being able to do these kind of psychic exercises to expand your awareness of what you're capable of doing.
You know, there's a large focus with the secret societies on things like Kabbalah and Hermeticism and alchemy and Christian mysticism. They preserve a lot of those ancient kind of studies and crafts within their teachings, definitely. And they have different, again, initiation processes, but also levels of membership that they do reach kind of within their own individual organization.
And I think that's really nice to have that support, but also knowing that you're able to connect, if you're able to connect with the right people or right groups or participate, you know, in events that are more in alignment with yourself, I think you're able to be able to get some of that information without having to be part of that group. But it's also important to, I don't know, I also value tradition, and I value, you know, like an ayahuasquero, people that do ayahuasca. Like nowadays you could, some, you know, 30-year-old guy could be giving ayahuasca, but I value that you would want to go to an ayahuasquero that's been trained for, you know, decades, or, you know, for a long period of time, that holds the tradition, and that there's a little bit of sacredness. So, you know, and then same thing with shamans, you know, you can get a certification after attending a 2-day online class and you're a certified shaman, you know, just, so it's kind of like, I don't know, no, like knowing that, yes, we have access to this information, but also not just like, okay, I got the certification, now I'm a shaman, now I'm going to call myself a shaman, without actually doing the work or doing the process that's required.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I understand exactly what you mean. I mean, being able to have someone who is trained and with experience, whether that be life experience or spiritual experience or any kind of experience, somebody who has reached some sort of level or rank that can guide and assist you. I feel like that is a great thing to have in your life. Definitely. That's mentorship. And I feel like that follows a lot of Neptune symbology, where Neptune, you know, the teacher appears for you kind of in prominent Neptune transits, because that's what you need at that moment. I believe strongly in mentorship.
Do you think with Neptune being in Pisces, you know, for the years that it has been and will be, that a lot of people are being called to such initiations or such experiences?
I think that all is one and one is all. And so I, like, you were going through the different, you said Rahus or something like that. I think you were referencing like Hinduism potentially, or Buddhism.
The yugas, like the Kali Yuga, we're in the Kali Yuga, and so it's the different age cycles.
Yeah, I think all of that connects together. You know what I mean? Like, it's all a part of the whole. So yes, Neptune and Pisces is a major factor in this. It's also human evolution in general, and where we are kind of as a human species as a whole. I mean, obviously I'm an astrologer, so I'm going to consider Neptune being in Pisces, especially because it's been 200 something years since it has been in Pisces. But at the same time, I think it's where we're at. It's what we've evolved to. We're getting to this point that initiation in general is so much more personal of a process. It's not something that has to be grand and huge, and we have to go to these temples and we have to listen to 111 hertz within the Great Pyramid in order to experience it. It's happening because it's what we need at this moment in time.
God, but to be able to do that would be so awesome. Like, it just, I mean, I feel like there's such a connection or a desire, and probably some past life connection. But with hypnosis, we are able to do that.
We're able to go back and see what kind of initiations you may have experienced before. And that is where we can kind of go to the ideology of theosophy, which I know, Rachel, I haven't talked to you as much about this, but theosophy in general was a philosophical religious system that existed I mean, I do believe it still does exist. It's the teachings of Alice Bailey and Blatsby, Helena. But we're seeing with theosophy, there's a strict outline of initiation theory. And I feel like that is a major focus because they focus a lot on levels, kind of, and where you are. And there's a very strong past life kind of reference to it all, too. Again, in our hypnosis, we are able to do this as well. We're able to see what level you are at, but that's another way of approaching that is this early 1900s kind of philosophical religious system.
I think that's, with hypnosis, which has been rewarding to, conduct them, to create them, and then to be a witness to people having their own experience, is how much information, insight, and wisdom is accessible to people, and that they can connect with these traditions and rituals and experiences, and draw them into their awareness with who they are now. I don't know, like, I think the Scorpio hypnosis that we did in the pyramid is my favorite example of that.
Hypnosis in general, though, is definitely a tool of the initiate's toolkit. I mean, that's why so many secret societies have utilized hypnosis. But I know Masonry has also used hypnosis. I know that I found old scriptures for the Templars using hypnosis. It's a great way to connect with yourself.
Well, because hypnosis is meditation, basically. It just seems, for me, it goes a little bit deeper than if you were just focusing on your breathing, and then to have somebody guide that and conduct the hypnosis to take it a bit deeper, especially kind of gauging where somebody's at. So hypnosis is deep meditation. It's trance work. So you're connecting to your subconscious, you're connecting to your higher self, to your higher mind. I think there's still our ego influence and logical mind that sometimes is at play and could be influencing to some degree, but the core of it, you're able to connect with these feelings and this knowing that seems to be beyond your rational mind or your conscious awareness.
Definitely, which is, again, tying back to initiation in general and being able to connect to this power kind of beyond yourself. Along with the mysteries. And that is another thing that hypnosis in general does shed a lot of light on.
So with the new moon in Virgo, so the way we do it is we have a event coming up. We know new moon and full moon is when we do our recordings and we do our hypnosis events. So new moon in Virgo, what are some of the keywords or archetypes attributed to Virgo?
Virgo is the maiden. At its highest vibration, we're looking at the ability to embrace unconditional love, kind of like that, or not even kind of, but literally like that of what a mother gives to a child. Those negative archetypes of Virgo, things like criticalness, judgment, all of that stuff, they do tie into that from a problem-solving perspective, but that's the shadow side of Virgo. Virgo is supposed to be able to utilize that judgment to solve, not just to judge for pure sinister reasons. I don't know. But Virgo, we're looking at service, we're looking at logic, we're looking at problem solving, solution-oriented nature, organization, health, the medical field, our health, literally.
Yeah, definitely. And then you're also looking at the apprentice. You're looking at the healer. I think you probably said that. So that was kind of when coming up with it, it just seemed like, okay, so people are going through life right now in this difficult time, but there's a lot of gifts that are also there that may be coming into their awareness, more time for themselves, more time to reflect, more time to focus on themselves. And so it is a time period where people have the opportunities to step up, to bring this experience and to gain an awareness into how they can navigate forward. And so the initiate was is basically an invitation to draw in the right teachers, the right information, and the awareness necessary without the judgment of self, of ego, and even working through judgment of others, to be able to move forward and to be able to be, whether they want to be the healer or the teacher or the, whatever role it is that somebody plays. And so that was the goal with the initiate, and then having this, and it seems to align well with everything that's going on and the energies that we're experiencing.
It should align really well. I mean, so the way that this new moon is playing out, there's a square to the nodal axis. And due to that, we're dealing with a mutable square. And we're dealing with it between Virgo, Sagittarius, and Gemini energy. And the way to dissipate a T-square like this, but this is not just any other T-square, it's a highly karmic T-square, because we're dealing, again, with the nodal axis. There's a past and present emphasis that's being brought. Past life even potentially influences that are being worked through and felt. And this is on a collective level. The key is to aim for Pisces energy. So this hypnosis couldn't have came at a better time, kind of, because hypnosis can fill in that spiritual blank. Definitely. It can provide people with the answers that they might really need right now, especially if they're kind of stuck in a rut and they don't know exactly consciously how to get out of it. Their subconscious might hold those answers, because, again, there's a really good possibility that there's a karmic part, a purpose to what they're experiencing at this moment in time.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I'm excited to see what happens. And again, for those that may be joining for the first time, the way the hypnosis is created is, we brainstorm some keywords, some ideas, and then I get myself into a meditative state and then record it, not knowing exactly how it's going to come out, but I just go with whatever imagery, thoughts, and feelings come to me to create the story and to guide it. And it always seems to work out beautifully. And that's where I'm able to get myself out of the way of this and trust that, that whatever it is that needs to be there for the highest good of all is going to show up through this recording. And I think, it works out that way. That's from what we've experienced, at least. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen and what's going to unfold and what people are going to experience and be initiated and be a part of that in some way. So for you, Lydia, in what ways do you think you've been initiated? Do you think it's been more of things have happened that have brought more awareness or more gifts or awareness to your gifts and abilities, and it's just life itself has initiated you? Or, I'm just curious from your perspective personally.
I think in a lot of ways, life itself does initiate us. That's kind of where I dug deep into theosophy last year, and I was really researching it heavily because I was trying to understand certain parts of myself that aren't explainable. Things like the fact that I experienced definitive telepathic connections, and this is not something that is supposed to be possible by scientific standards, at least not ones that are available to the everyday person. And theosophy kind of helped me with that a little bit, because it did explain that this was like a certain level of initiation. I think at the second initiation or the third initiation via theosophy, you experience full control of both clairvoyance and clairaudence abilities. And I can remember for myself, like, when those two popped in and came online for me. So it's really interesting to be able to kind of have that information at your fingertips, even if everything within this initiation theory I did not connect with. It was nice to see that maybe this had something to do with this. Maybe initiation was a part of this process that I experienced in my awakening.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, I joined a lot of different groups and did a lot of different classes and read a lot of books. But for me, it's been the more that I do these things and then see the results, like even something simple as just trusting, just trusting your intuition, and then being guided to do certain things, and then you actually do that in spite of any obstacles or self-doubts or limiting beliefs, and you push through, then it's kind of like, oh, the next awareness comes. And so even now, just if I were to just look at being a hypnotherapist and the process of learning that, and then doing classes and workshops and doing individual and group sessions and all that, it's gotten me to an awareness of what is possible for myself and others, and seeing myself completely differently than I did 5 years ago before I started this. And so obviously certain experiences have helped and forced me to do that, but it's just really interesting how when you go with the flow, when you go with the guidance and you trust it, the next opportunity, the next lesson, the next gift is there for you, if you, as long as you just keep going with that.
Brought up esoteric astrology, and esoteric astrology outlines the crosses that we amount within our life, or within our soul's kind of travels, we'll say. And the mutable cross is the very first step. And that's ultimately what we're experiencing via this new moon, is that mutable axis being lit up. And I was thinking about the fact that you really need all of the mutable signs in order to be initiated. You need Gemini, you need Virgo, you need Sagittarius, and you need Pisces. Pisces is going to outline the spiritual experience, and you need that in order to, wake up to this entire process, this entire initiation. You need Gemini because you need to be able to acquire the knowledge, but to remain mutable in the process, to be able to communicate with other people and to learn, and to know when to let go of information as well, when to not hold that. You need Virgo energy because you need to be able to problem solve what it is that you are experiencing, what it is that you have experienced in this initiation process, to be able to potentially solve problems with this esoteric element that you're being presented with. And you need Sagittarius as well, because Sagittarius is the faith element. It's the higher philosophy. I didn't even think about any of this, but it really does fit the mutable grand cross. It does indefinitely assist in the initiation process. Without it, it would be obsolete.
Yeah, and it's finding the balance between these oppositions, and with the Gemini, Sagittarius, and Pisces and Virgo, being able to ground this Piscean energy, to not get lost in it, to ground it, to make it part of your daily living, your practices, to be able to gather the information and discern what's valuable and let go of what's not. But discernment is so important. So how would somebody know to discern what is valuable, what's not, what's beneficial? Do you think that's also just a knowing that people come into, or discernment? What do you think?
I think discernment is an element of mastery. So wouldn't that be Saturn related? Because when you're dealing with those 4 mutable signs and it's creating a grand cross, which is ultimately what will be active during this new moon, you learn to balance is a word, a word that we could potentially use, but it's more so to learn the interconnectedness of life, because you learn how those 4 areas of life in your natal chart ultimately. So we're looking at Pisces, we're looking at Virgo, we're looking at Gemini, we're looking at Sagittarius, how all of those are interconnected, and how every move that you make at each angle ultimately affects all of the other angles as well. And I think that in order to learn how to work with that energy, as you said, there's an element of mastery involved. But that's kind of the beautiful thing about this new moon as well. It's exactly trine Saturn. So it's offering us that ability to master this in a way.
Yeah, Saturn has such a bad reputation in astrology, or for people that are they're into basic astrology, or even Pluto, right? But these energies, it's you're right. Saturn is that discernment, the mastery. That's do the hard work, do what is required, do the right thing, make sure it's valuable, make sure that that your sources can be a good foundation. So that's really interesting that it's making these aspects during this time. This was a good idea to do the initiate.
It was. I've been wanting to tell you all of this. As I'm researching this, I'm thinking to myself, like, all of these things kept popping up to me, and I'm like, she was right on the money with this. But also what you just said about Pluto. Pluto is also aspecting this new moon. So not only do we have the dedication of Saturn, the ability to master something, we also have rebirth that is making its way into the picture. Jupiter, that one's a little bit wide because, yeah, Jupiter's still at 17. This new moon's 25. But there's a lot of grounding energy that is being granted to this beautiful, mutable clusterfuck, we'll say.
I think it's something worth mentioning. I think people, when they go on this spiritual journey, some of them oftentimes are looking for an escape from their pain, from their suffering, right? So they look and they find it. And there's that saying, like, don't start this process or the spiritual journey. I don't know exactly the quote or saying, but if you do, don't get off of it, because once you know, you can't go backwards. I mean, you can, but you don't want to. And it's not like you get on this journey so that, okay, automatically I have these gifts, life is good, everything is great, okay, I'm good. You actually feel more the more work you do. You're going to be more empathetic. You're going to be more in touch with your emotions. Your life is still going to happen, but you're able to bring into an awareness a way to work through it, as well as to have the strength to be able to do so and be able to align with the right people to support you, And so I think even with initiation, people are wanting to have these elevated states of experience, thinking that, okay, I'm good. I don't have to go through anything anymore. And I don't think that's how life is. Life is going to be what it is. We can't guarantee that nothing bad will ever happen, ever. I mean, that's impossible. But at least you're given the tools of how to work through that, and an awareness of who you really are and what you're capable of doing, versus a limited perception of who you are based on your conditioning, your upbringing, what people have said about you, what you've held on to. So I just wanted to mention that.
No, and I think you're absolutely right. And I mean, you just saying that really brought into perspective for me that this new moon is in Virgo, right? And so people seek out initiation, as you just said, to find a resolve. That's Virgo. Virgo's the resolve. Virgo is the ability to solve a problem. Virgo is the ability to bring forth some sort of resolution. And with this new moon, again, the answer is Pisces. And so what I'm trying to say here is that initiation in this case is the answer. It's the solution. Whether or not you can do that, that's a personal decision, but it's definitely something to consider, that you have that power.
Yeah, and you may not know all the answers. It may not appear. Like, I don't know how many times, like, I have, like, wished that I could have, like, my spirit guide just, like, give me a sheet of paper of telling me exactly what I need to do. But it doesn't work that way. As much as you ask or pray, it just doesn't happen. But when you are quiet and you quiet your mind and you connect with a sense of peace, somehow the answer shows up, or you get the dream, or somebody says something, or for me, it's like the right book or the right YouTube or the right, so it's just kind of like being okay and comfortable in the unknown, in things that may not be completely clear all the time, but trusting that if you go with this energy, that if you trust, that you're going to get what you need to move you to your next stage in your life.
But in order to even make it to that point, you have to be the initiate. That's the thing. Because if you're not the initiate, you don't even believe that that's possible. All right, guys. Well, I think that we are just about running out of time here on our discussion about initiation. But we are indeed hosting an event on Thursday. I'm feeling that it's going to bring some interesting experiences, largely due to the current planetary shenanigans that are going on. So thank you so much for being with us tonight. We value and appreciate you. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week on episode 9.